Everybody. So today I wanted to talk about Moira Deeming, who's a politician here in Australia, quite close to where I live in Victoria. So she stands on the Legislative Assembly, which is in Victoria. So it's the state parliament. So it's not federal, but state. But so there's three levels essentially here in Australia. So we have federal, state, and local. So local is like a mayor. State is sort of in between that, where you have a governor, and then of course federal, and then you have the prime minister. So, and she's not the governor, premier we call the state. I forgot the name of it. She's just a regular person, but she is in one of the major parties. So she's in the Liberal Party. I'll just quickly give a little bit of a history of it, but before that, I'll tell you what is important about it. So she just sued her boss, the leader of the Liberal Party, who's in opposition here in Victoria. His name's John Pesutto. She sued him for defamation, and yesterday she won. So that's what's interesting about this. And what the defamation was is that he called her a Nazi. And she said, well, I'm not a Nazi. She's actually a Maori. I mean, depending on your definition of Nazi, are they necessarily racist? That's one thing, but she's definitely said she's not a Nazi. And so she was awarded $300,000 in damages, and they're going to make a decision as to whether he has to pay back her legal fees. And her legal fees were about $2 million. They haven't decided that either way, but it sounds as if there's a pretty good chance that he'll have to. And people are saying that, so she was kicked out of the Liberal Party over this. People are saying that she'll probably be put back in. And not only that, but some people are saying that he'll lose his position as the leader of the Liberal Party for Victoria. And not only that, but some people are saying that she might even replace him. So it's quite a big deal. Now, I wanted to go over that a little bit. So, first of all, what we know of Moira, so she grew up in a Labor Party. Now, so here in Australia, for people overseas, Labor Party is one of the major parties. There's Labor and Liberal. Labor are the left wing. They're the progressives, and they're often representing trade unions. Liberal Party are the conservatives. Now, I know that people hear the word liberal and they think progressive. Here in Australia, it actually means the opposite. There's a whole long, convoluted part of why that means conservative, but it just does. So think of liberal as like Republican in America. Think of Labor like Democrats in America, but it's not quite the same. We actually did have a Democrat Party. Weren't very popular, but they've folded now. I think they have anyway. So, we have a Green Party that's they're also sort of progressive and, all that sort of stuff. But anyway, so she ended up, so her family were always on the Labor side, always progressives, but she ended up on the Conservative side and went into power as a Conservative representative. Now, what ended up getting her in trouble here was that she had some claims against what we're going to call trans people. So, not against gays, she's quite happy with gays, but against trans. So, she specifically disagreed with the idea that trans people were allowed to use the bathrooms, the public toilets of their choice. And she did that, that was her platform, because she had 4 children and I think 3 girls, maybe? I'm not sure what they are, but she was quite worried about them. Now we've got to also note that that's not a strange view. The majority of people agree with her that trans women, people who start off being men and had the snip or whatever version they had, that they shouldn't be allowed into women's public toilets. I personally don't agree with her. I think that public toilet isn't all that safe anyway, and just putting a sign on the front doesn't exactly stop people from going in when they're not meant to, or from doing the wrong thing anyway. So there's I disagree. I don't think that she's right about that, but that's still her view, and it's a mainstream view. So the majority of people agree with her. I'm probably in the minority not agreeing with her, but she still has that right to have that, and it's not an obscure view. And in fact, she doesn't have any obscure views. It's just that she's a bit vocal about it. So other people keep it to themselves because they're worried about upsetting the trans community. Now, there's really three main things that what people who are called anti-trans talk about. Three mainstream views. One is the idea that trans people shouldn't be in public toilets, or in the wrong public toilets, or women's public toilets. And the second is that, and probably the most popular one, is that trans women shouldn't be competing in women's only sports. Now that one I agree with. I think that's cheating. And the third one is that trans women shouldn't be in women's only prison. Now again, I'm thinking prison, what rights do you have when you're in prison? But anyway, so those three are all mainstream views, so most people agree with her. I think it's around 85% of people that would agree with her. So it's not a strange view. She's not one of these weird people that nobody else agrees with. These are normal views that she has. Now, calling her anti-trans would be a lie, because that's suggesting that everyone's anti-trans, and most people are quite happy with trans people, but they just have those three exceptions that they say, well, okay, I'm happy with someone being trans, with having the operation and whatever level of operation. We don't care what level. We don't need to know what level you've had, whether you just have top surgery or bottom surgery or whatever you want to call it, or if you don't have the surgery and you just dress up. That's your business. But on those three areas, it becomes other people's business. And that's all that people are saying. It's all that she's saying. Now, there are people that are anti-trans who don't agree with getting anything done at all. That's not more redeeming. There are other people who say they shouldn't be doing the surgery. That's a minority view. Now, some people confuse that minority view of actual anti-trans, which says you shouldn't be getting trans surgery. Trans surgery's been around since the 1950s. Some people are against that. That's the minority view. That is not more redeeming's view. And so people saying that these majority mainstream views are anti-trans are lying. They're just plain lying. They're deliberately confusing something that is a common, normal, recognised as acceptable view, and something that's unusual, not accepted, and a strange view. So anti-trans is unusual, but what she has is not anti-trans, but it's described by some people as anti-trans, and they're lying. They're just blatantly lying. She's never said she's anti-trans. She supports trans people. And this is the thing. Now, the people that are actually anti-trans tend to be religious people, very religious, who say, you shouldn't be upsetting God's word. But again, trans isn't that much different to plastic surgery. So you probably want to be against plastic surgery too. And there are people who are. You might be someone who's against IVF. You might be against, getting your breasts enhanced, or or whatever it might be. Now, that's not the mainstream view. Most people are okay with that. Maura Adeyemi's okay with that. She's not anti-trans, but she's against some things that most people are against. But all she's done is she's said it a bit more vocally than other people have. And this is where it becomes a difficult issue, because you have this normal view that most people hold, but people are too scared to say it, because if you say this normal view, then you'll be falsely accused of being anti-trans, and anti-trans is a minority view. Now, what she did to cause all this was that they had a protest called Let Women Speak. Now, Let Women Speak was just saying, it was a feminist movement. It was saying, let women speak about these three mainstream views that are not anti-trans, but are just saying these restrictions should be placed on trans so they don't interfere with women's rights. And those, again, Those 3V things are: number one, to say no trans people in women's only bathrooms, no trans people competing in women's sports, and the third one, no trans people in women's prisons. Now, you could disagree with all three, or just one, or just two. It could be any one, any two. And you could be allowed to speak. I'm saying let women speak. So this was falsely described in some parts of the media as being anti-trans. That was never anti-trans. It's run by Kelly Jane Keeley? Kelly J. Keeley? I can't remember her proper name, but anyway. Now, she may well be anti-trans, but that doesn't mean that other people were. And again, this was not about hating on trans people. This was about stopping trans people from interfering with women's rights. Two completely different things. It's almost like saying, oh, well, I'm against guns because I don't want you to shoot me. They're completely different issues. And so it was falsely described in some parts of the media as being anti-trans. And because of this, and because anti-trans itself is actually a minority view and is considered to be hate speech, it encouraged a lot of people to be very violent against these people who are not anti-trans. Right? So women going there that are not anti-trans, that are just saying, well, we have a right to speak. And then some Nazis came in there, like actual Nazis, which is illegal in Australia, but they were allowed in because, well, some people say that at least one of them was the son of one of the police that was supposed to be protecting them. And then because of that, suddenly they're besmirching them and saying, well, these people who are feminists, who are not anti-trans, who are against trans people infringing on women's rights, that they're Nazis. It was almost like it was set up. And they did a Nazi salute. It's almost like it was set up. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But it sort of felt a bit like it was set up. And in fact, the women there said that they thought that the Nazis there were on the side of the other side. They certainly weren't on their side. And so this then went through Parliament. And what happened was that the other side, so the side that was in power, Labor Party, so not Morabito's side, but the other side, they said this was the Nazis and these were anti-trans, both of which were lies. But you're the other side, who cares? You're expected to lie about your opposition. That's what politicians do, they tell lies about each other. You know, if you're in opposition, you're telling a lie about the other side. And arguably she couldn't sue them because they just sort of lie about each other. Labor lie about Liberal, Liberal lie about Labor. It's just what you do. But then what happened was that her own leader agreed with those lies. And he said that she was a Nazi. And he did that based on Wikipedia. Anybody who's used Wikipedia knows how dishonest it is. And that pushes a certain narrative. Now, Wikipedia didn't mention this in their own article, that they were used as a basis for this smear. So Wikipedia is actually, in a sense, responsible for this besmirching. But they don't get sued, because Wikipedia are all anonymous. You don't know who's who. You don't know who decided that. Her articles on Wikipedia, and related to this, all say anti-trans, when they're not anti-trans. So they're lying. And it says all this stuff to justify the claim that she was a Nazi, when she's not a Nazi. And they haven't mentioned any of this, even now, even today, even after the judgment. So Wikipedia are still responsible for this lying. I mean, how responsible is an issue? John Pesutto could say, well, it's not his fault, because Wikipedia started it. Although he should have checked his facts, he should have realised that Wikipedia are unreliable. They're untrustworthy. How many people use Wikipedia and accept it as fact when it's not fact? How many people think that Wikipedia is just has to be correct? Of course it is. We use it for our homework. How many people would use Wikipedia to say, oh, well, therefore she's clearly anti-trans, she's clearly a Nazi? Stuff what the law says. And that I think is a big part of the problem. So, John Pesutto obviously shouldn't have done it. He should learn not to trust Wikipedia. And also he should learn that when his opposition is smearing the name of one of his people, he should probably realise that that's probably not honest either. Anyway, that's it from me. Bye-bye now.